الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأصلي وأسلم على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين نبينا محمد عليه وعلى آله وصحبه أفضل الصلاة وأزكى التسليم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي اللهم أجل الحق على قلوبنا وألسنتنا وارزقنا الإخلاص في كل قول وعمل يا أرحم الراحمين. We continue today inshallah with Surah al-Mā'idah. Shaykh Abdul yesterday covered up to verse 20, and I'll just read it because it's related to the rest of the verses we'll talk about inshallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وإذ قال موسى لقومه يا قوم اذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ جعل فيكم أنبياء وجعلكم ملوكا وآتاكم ما لم يؤت أحدا من العالمين. Musa alayhi salam said to his people, my people, remember Allah's blessings on you, and how He raised prophets among you, and appointed kings from you, and gave you what He had not given to any other people. يا قوم ادخلوا الأرض المقدسة التي كتب الله لكم ولا ترتدوا على أدباركم فتنقلبوا خاسرين. O people, or my people, go into the holy land which Allah has ordained for you, and do not turn back, or you will be losers, or you'll be the losers. So in the first verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that Musa alayhi salam was reminding his people. He says, وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لِقَوْمِهِ, reminding his people about the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is a beautiful methodology of the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to order them or command them to do something. Before you do the command, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala softens our hearts as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, go and pray. One should be recalling all of the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. And then when you remember all of the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's not all because there's no way we can وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا. You cannot recall all of the blessings, but remember some of the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon you. And when you know that, and you think, oh subhanAllah, and I'm going to spend only 10 minutes of my day, like today, I might pray Fajr or pray Dhuhr or pray Asr, just 10 minutes at any given time, you would feel like much more, subhanAllah, all of these blessings, and I'm only asked to spend just 10 minutes to ask Allah, to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give him a commandment now. But before the commandment, He says, what? اذكروا نعمة الله. Recall the blessing of Allah upon you. That He subhanahu wa ta'ala has raised from amongst you prophets. He has raised from amongst you kings. He has given you what He has never given anyone else. And the scholars, and Shaykh Abdul yesterday talked about this, but the scholars talk about different things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given Bani Israel specifically. Okay. Among these things, as we've seen this, the journey of Bani Israel, if you see now, we're talking about the time after Musa alayhi salam took Bani Israel from Egypt after years of tyranny, years of oppression, killing their children, right? Years of atrocities against Bani Israel. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, throughout this time, multiple miracles happened. Allah shown Pharaoh, and the people of Egypt, as well as Bani Israel, all of these miracles. Starting from the staff of Musa alayhi salam turning to a snake, talking about like the different miracles Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the different miracles, ending with the fact of the matter, they just crossed the sea, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala parted the sea for them and they just went through. They've just seen that with their own eyes. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, now they are past this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has saved them from Fir'aun and his people. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, again, through Musa alayhi salam, now reminding them, just remember all of these blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them a commandment. It's a commandment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لِقَوْمِهِ نعم يَا قَوْمِ إِلَىٰ Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَا قَوْمِ ادْخُلُوا الْأَرْضَ الْمُقَدَّسَةَ الَّتِي كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ وَلَا تَرْتَدُّوا عَلَىٰ أَدْبَارِكُمْ فَتَنْقَلِبُوا خَاسِرِينَ. O my people, Musa is telling them, O my people, enter the holy land, al-Ard al-Muqaddasa. Al-Muqaddas is something that I said, the holy, anything that is cleansed, anything that is sacred in that sense, the Ard al-Muqaddasa. The Mufassirin, they differed. What is the Ard al-Muqaddasa? Nobody was able to pinpoint, they said, this is it. They said, generally speaking, it's from this place called Arish, which is in Egypt, okay, all the way down to the Jordan River. It's somewhere in between. Some specify more. It's called Ariha. I don't know what is it called in English now, but it's in the West Bank. Okay. Ariha is a place in the West Bank in Palestine. Okay. So some people are specifying, but it's somewhere in between these places, right? And they said they didn't differ. It's between Arish in Egypt, right after Sinai, or from Sinai, to the Jordan River. It's somewhere in between. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded it to. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, through Musa, he says, ادخلوا الأرض يا قوم ادخلوا الأرض المقدسة التي كتب الله لكم. The one that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written for you. There's a lot of discussion around this. كتب الله لكم. What does that mean, كتب الله لكم? Katab, as we said in this translation, says ordained. We have other verses say كتب عليكم الصيام, right? كتب, that means it has been ordained on you, written on you. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, this is enter the land that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written for you, ordained for you. What I just mentioned is one translation. We said, enter the land that Allah has ordained for you. That means I'm referring to the land that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordained for you. Some scholars say, no, it's not really referring because kataba Allahu lakum. He says, katabaha Allahu lakum. That's a difference in Arabic language that is extremely important. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not say, written it for you. He says, the one that Allah written, but what did Allah write for them, or what Allah ordained them to do, what Allah ordered them to do? He says, to enter the land. There's two separate things here. There's a difference between an order to enter the land and a difference between that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written something for them. That's two separate things. The order is that you enter the land that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says you go into this land, you go to this land. And now they talk about this, what they call al-qadr al-kawni or irada al-kawniyya or irada al-shar'iyya. What does that mean? And it's important. I'm going to repeat it in English. It's important so you understand the verses and the meanings of the verses. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in other verse, when he talks about haram in Mecca, says, وَمَنْ دَخَلَهُ كَانَ آمِنًا. Whoever enters the haram are safe, become safe. Some of us are not old enough. I'm not old enough myself to recall this. But in 1989, we know there's an incident in al-Haram, in Mecca, where some people occupied the haram. Some of you might be aware of this. In 1989, for multiple days, they took over. So some people start saying, subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that whoever enters is safe. How is that? There's no safety there. And these people, a lot of them were killed afterwards. They came, occupied the haram and said, nobody enters. It was a huge, huge event. So some people looking at this verse and says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran what? وَمَنْ دَخَلَهُ كَانَ آمِنًا. Whoever enters are safe. This is not a form of safety because we misunderstood. That's irada shar'iyya. What does that mean? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ordering us. Says we need to make sure, it's a command for us to make sure that whoever enters the haram, being us Muslims, needs to be safe. We should not be fighting, we should not be doing it. But it's not Allah is informing us that it's a done deal, everyone enters is safe. No. It's an action that is being asked from us. The action is if someone, we're not allowed to fight in the haram in Mecca. We're not allowed to. You're not allowed to even cut trees. You're not allowed to hunt. You're not allowed to do a lot of stuff. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put it as a commandment. But if someone goes and hunts or cuts a tree, Allah does not stop them. They are disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at that point. So that's the irada shar'iyya, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordained shar'an, meaning that commanded us as a do's and do nots of what needs to happen. Not that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordained it on us. One last example about this irada, kawniyya and shar'iyya. So shar'iyya is a commandment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Kawniyya, that is by creation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordained that Abdullah Jameel is 6 foot. You have no choice. You cannot come, I would wish, man, it's like, I just need 3 more. 3 more inches, I'll be 6'3", that would be amazing. No. You have no control. That's irada kawniyya. You have no control who your father and mother is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordained that on you and me. You have no control where you were born, when you were born, how tall you are. There's things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has. So is this verse talking about irada kawniyya or irada shar'iyya? As Mufassirin say, no, it's irada shar'iyya. It's a commandment. Is in opposition to that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had made it like it's a done deal. And to prove that, later in the verses, I'm not going to cover it today most likely, but if you see 3 verses down afterwards, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قَالَ فَإِنَّهَا مُحَرَّمَةٌ عَلَيْكُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says what? It's forbidden for you. Done, you're not going to enter. So now He told them, enter the land that has been written for you. 2-3 verses later, He said, no, you're not entering, done. Not you. That's why it's irada shar'iyya, meaning that it's the will of Allah. It's a commandment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says what? ادخلوا الأرض التي كتب الله لكم. And it's a beautiful way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put. It says, enter the land that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written for you. Meaning what? Written for you, that you would enter it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving them a commandment. But He's trying to make, I said, the commandment as something that is easy for the human, for them to accept. So as if He's giving them the good news already. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written for you, just go. Just do the action. Just take a step towards it. That's all He's asking. And Musa alayhi salam knows his people well. He says what? Before he didn't say anything. He just said, enter the land that Allah has written for you. وَلَا تَرْتَدُّوا عَلَىٰ أَدْبَارِكُمْ فَتَنْقَلِبُوا خَاسِرِينَ. I'm giving you the commandment before you even do anything. Don't fall back. Irtad is to return back. على أدباركم. Dubur is like your back. Okay? So it's a metaphor, or it's an indication of someone when you're facing your enemy in a battlefield or in a war, you're looking at them. If you're giving them your back, that means what? You're running away. So He said, لا ترتدوا على أدبارهم. Don't turn around, don't turn away. Either you're giving them your back or you're going backwards. So it's whichever way. Sometimes you turn around and just flee, and sometimes you're just falling back. In both cases, وَلَا تَرْتَدُّوا عَلَىٰ أَدْبَارِكُمْ. Don't fall back. Okay? فَتَنْقَلِبُوا خَاسِرِينَ. And else you will turn into losers. You'll be losers. That's before he heard anything from them, Musa alayhi salam. But he has been with Bani Israel for quite some time. And Musa is one, alayhi afdal salatu wasalam, ala nabina, alayhi afdal salatu wasalam. He's been one of the prophets, and that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says from ulil azm, from Rasul. He is one of the top great prophets because he has been through a lot with his people as well. Right? Staying with them, making sure that they are learning, a lot. And we said, they just crossed the sea. The first thing after they crossed the sea, they did what? قَالُوا اجْعَلْ لَنَا إِلَهًا كَمَا لَهُمْ آلِهَةٌ. They found some people that have some kind of a statue, or like some kind of like an idol. Said, oh Musa, can you please make an idol for us like these people? You just crossed the sea. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just parted the sea for you. You've seen it with your own eyes. First thing says what? I'm looking, but it's like, and so sallallahu alayhi wa ala Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. A prophet going through this after all of these years of teaching, and I teach my kids one thing, right? A week later when they forget, I become upset. Imagine he's been with them for years, seeing the miracles. What do you feel like? What do you think how he feels, alayhi salam, Musa alayhi salam, about his people? Because they not just remember like forgetting, they want a idol like other people. So imagine how he feels. So he knows his people. That's why he said, enter the land and don't go back. That's a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How did they respond? قالوا يا موسى إن فيها قوما جبارين وإنا لن ندخلها حتى يخرجوا منها فإن يخرجوا منها فإنا داخلون. Says they replied, O Moses, there is an enormously powerful people there, so we shall never enter it until they get out. If they do get out, we are ready to go in. إن يخرجوا منها فإنا داخلون. The response directly said what? First of all, they said that there's people, oh Musa, we're not going to say. He said there are people there, Jabbar. Jabbar, from Jabr, in Arabic language, meaning that you force someone, you have the power, the ability to force someone to kind of submit to your will. Jabr. Okay? They have other words, again, for the sake of time, we're not going to go through. But that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Jabbar. Right? But when it comes to humans, usually it comes with a negative connotation, that someone who said like forcibly holding people against. It's also a reference to, they used to say that the people that used to live in these lands, they call عمالقة. Like they were like big, huge people. Okay? There are some really asatir, I don't know what to call, legends and things like that. We're not going to go through it. But they were known to be huge people, big people, powerful people of strength and so forth. And how did they know? Last time I was looking at Tafsir, we were talking about this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Musa sent from amongst them 12 naqiba, that he sent from among the 12 naqib. And we talked about naqib is someone who's like this. He said there can be meaning that spies from amongst them. He sent a group of people from Bani Israel to go and check out the land before they enter. Okay. And when they saw that, they said a lot of good wealth, and they said laban and asal, like milk and honey and fruits and. But there are a lot of very powerful people, extremely strong. They have good fortifications. Okay? So, based on some tafsir, they said when these people came in, the nuqaba, these are the 12 people who said the spies that went in, Musa alayhi salam told them, do not tell anyone. Because he knew the command from Allah is going to come that we're going to enter this. So don't tell people so you don't get afraid. And everyone said, okay, so we're not going to tell. But everyone started saying his father, his brother, and so forth. And they said, but don't tell anyone. And then the father and brother go and tell someone else. Don't tell anyone. By the time it came to Musa, everyone knew it. Okay? They said the only 2 people did not engage in this kind of action. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "What? قَالُوا يَا مُوسَى إِنَّ فِيهَا قَوْمًا جَبِّينَ." There are some people there that are said enormous, they are powerful, they are like strong. And وَإِنَّا لَن نَدْخُلَهَا حَتَّى يَخْرُجُوا مِنْهَا. And we indeed will never enter it. This lan in the Arabic language, it's a negation. But negation says ta'bidiyya. It's like we will never enter it until they come out of it. And then to even confirm it, it says, and if they come out of it, وَإِن يَخْرُجُوا مِنْهَا فَإِن يَخْرُجُوا مِنْهَا فَإِنَّا دَاخِلُونَ. And also the word in, and I'm going to give you again in 1 minute because I know I have to end. In is used in the Arabic language. There's a difference between إِذَا and in. And they're all conditional. So, إِن تُذَاكَرْ تَنْجَحْ. That means what? If you study, you would succeed. But the word in is usually used for something that doesn't happen often. So right now, I actually use a wrong example. Why? Because إِذَا تُذَاكَرْ تَنْجَحْ is better. Because usually it's like if you study, you usually succeed. But in is used for something that is either not frequently happening or even impossible to happen. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says what? قُلْ إِن كَانَ لِلرَّحْمَنِ وَلَدٌ فَأَنَا أَوْلَى الْعَابِدِينَ. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a son, I'll be the first to worship. On one of the tafsir, abidin meaning to worship. Okay? But he said Allah has impossible. It's impossible. But Allah used the word in that case. To indicate that it is almost, he said, something that is impossible. He said, فَإِن يَخْرُجُوا مِنْهَا. Even them, they were not sure they're ever going to leave. But they're saying what? And that's where we're going to end. That's the lesson for us. Bani Israel, this group of people specifically, have seen so many miracles with their own eyes, living in it. And they were under all of this oppression. Okay? In slavery within Egypt. This slavery mentality did not leave them out yet. They're still under construction. They're still under training. But also they became so reliant on what? Miracles. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, no, now you need to take a step. I already delivered you. Through all of these different miracles, now you have to take a step. I already guaranteed you. الَّتِي كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. I guaranteed you that you enter, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give you success. He says, no. We're going to stay here. We don't want to take any action. We want them to leave on their own. We're not going to take the action on our side. Sometimes we act that way. And that's the difference between tawakkul and tawakkul. Sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in charge of everything. He's going to do it for us. True. You and I need to take action. And don't fall into this trap to say what? There are some bad people in there. We're not going to do anything. We're afraid of them. Allah commanded you. The one who knows exactly what is in this land commanded you to do that. He knows. وَلَا يُكَلِّفُ اللَّهُ نَفْسًا إِلَّا وُسْعَهَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not command us with something that we cannot, like from a burden that we cannot achieve, or we cannot. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't overburden us with something we cannot achieve. Allah has commanded them with something that He knows subhanahu wa ta'ala that is achievable. Not only that it's achievable, He gave them the glad tidings. He said, كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. It's already ordained for this good. You're going to go enter, it's going to. He said, no. Allah needs to make a miracle. They need to leave. We're not going to even do it. So we should never fall into this trap of inaction. The commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when Allah commands,
Allah gives us the means to achieve the commandments. We should never be questioning the commandment of Allah. Oh, it's too hard. It's too hard. أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ وَهُوَ اللَّطِيفُ الْخَبِيرُ. Doesn't the one who has created us know best and better for us what is better for us? He's the one who created. He says, do. سَمِعْنَا وَأَطَعْنَا. Oh Allah, we listen, we hear what you commanded us, and we follow. That's our should be attitude. It should not be, again, from the lessons of the people before us, what mistake they've done, so that you and I don't fall in the same trap. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes us amongst those who listen to the best of words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, follow the commandments. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes us among those who listen to the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, Sami'na wa ata'na, we hear you, O Allah, and we follow your commandments regardless of what we feel or think about it. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we ask you to fill our hearts with the acceptance and the love of all of your commandments. We accept you, Ya Allah, we ask you, Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you forgive us for any of the shortcomings that we do. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you give shifa to all of our people who are healing, to everyone who is sick, especially Dr. Yahya Alvi. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alleviate his sickness, give him, Ya Rabbi, full and speedy recovery, and make him come again with us, inshaAllah. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لكم استغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.